Now turn to Section 1. Section 1. You'll hear two teachers discussing arrangements for a goodbye party for a colleague. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 4. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Hi, Tony. Thanks ever so much for coming. You know we've been asked to organise something for John's farewell.
Yeah, sure. It's about time we started working out details.
Exactly. We don't want to leave it so late that it's double the work.
Right. Do you want me to take notes?
Oh, that'd be great, thanks.
Right. First thing is, when is the best time to hold it?
Well, he leaves on the 24th of December.
So what about the 22nd?
Yeah, I think that's about right. We want it quite near the time, don't we?
Sure. And what about a venue? In college? A hotel?
I think a hotel will probably work out rather expensive. And I've been looking at the college dining room. That seems pretty reasonable.
Fine. Yeah, why not?
And then we ought to be thinking about invitations. Who mustn't we forget to invite?
Well, obviously John and his wife.
Oh, right.
And the director.
Uh-huh.
The office staff.
Yep. And all the teachers and all the students.
Anyone else?
Faculty heads?
No, better draw the line. I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't mind writing the invitations. When shall we get them out for?
Enough time, but not too early. What about the 15th of December?
Well, there are exams on the 16th. Better avoid them.
10th?
Yeah, that should do it.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 5 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 5 to 10.
So, what does that leave? Oh, yes, a present.
Would you mind doing that?
No, not at all. We usually go round with an envelope during coffee break, don't we?
Yeah, coffee break's always the best time, because people have got their money handy.
Yeah, exactly. Do we suggest an amount, or does it seem a bit unfair?
No, I think people welcome it. We suggested $6 last time. Is that okay?
Yeah, plenty, I would have thought, which should leave us with about $90.
Have you any ideas for presents?
Well, I've been having a little think. I thought, he loves music.
Yeah, and books.
So I thought I'd check on prices for, perhaps CD players?
Yeah, that's a good idea. And also I thought maybe, a set of dictionaries. I heard him say he needed a good one.
The other thing he was saying last week was that his computer printer had broken.
No, I'd be really frightened about getting the wrong type.
Okay, yeah.
The other thing is something for the home. Jill suggested a coffee maker.
Oh, yeah. I'll certainly find out what they cost. Okay. Have you got all that down?
Yes.
Now, we need to think a little more about the money. I know we've got a set amount from the social fund.
Right. What does that cover?
It's meant to cover the cost of the room.
Yeah.
And a certain amount for food.
And also drinks?
Oh, yeah, certainly.
But will it be enough?
What we've done in the past is to ask guests to bring some snacks.
Right.
We don't ask them to bring more drinks because we figure that should come from the social fund.
Okay. Anything else for the guests to bring?
Well, some music, because there'll be a tape deck there in the room, and we can have some dancing later on.
Anything else?
Well, it's just a thought, but a couple of years ago we had a really good party where we set up, some simple games.
Yeah, great. Wasn't it based on photos from the students and teachers?
That's right.
So we should ask the guests to bring photos. Okay, I'll put it on the invitations.
Now, the last thing is, who shall we ask to do the speech?
Don't you think it might be nice to have one of the students?
Well, then the student leader?
Yeah, much better than the director giving speeches again.
Okay, then I'll ask her. Lovely. So, is that all?
It looks like it.
Great. Oh, thanks ever so much.
That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turn to section 2. Section 2. You will hear a customer services official giving information to a passenger at a railway station in a town called Trebirch. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 17. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 17.
Hello. My family and I are staying here in Trebirch for a week or two, and we wanted to know about the train services. We're hoping to do a few local trips.
Okay. Well, I can give you lots of details about all the trains going from Trebirch in the southwest. This leaflet will be very helpful, but I can tell you some of the main things. We've got 2 main train stations in the town. King Street is for local commuter lines and regional services.
What about trains to London? I'll need to go there on business for one day.
Then you need to go to Central Station. That's for all the national services. There are regular trains to London. They leave Trebirch every half hour on weekdays and every hour at weekends. It takes about 2 hours, a bit longer on Sundays. You've got a choice of first and second class, and there's a buffet car, though refreshments are included in the cost of a first-class ticket.
Ah, right. And have you got any information on different ticket types?
Yes, there's a range of ticket prices depending on when you travel and when you buy your ticket. There's a standard open ticket, which doesn't have any restrictions. This can be bought in advance or on the day. You can also get various discounted tickets. A popular one is called the Super Save, and this is okay for travel after 8:45. Then there is the special ticket, which is valid for travel after 10:15. The special tickets are also valid for travel at weekends. The cheapest tickets are called advance, and you have to buy them at least 6 days ahead. Only a certain number are available, and you have to make seat reservations for these.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 18 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 18 to 20.
Thanks. And are there lots of places to go to around here?
Oh, yes. You can enjoy many days out. There's the Merthyr Mining Museum, which is only half an hour from Trubirch by train. Your children will find it just as fascinating as any theme park, and they can ride in the original miners' lifts and on the coal trains. There are special excursion tickets which include entrance fees. Mainline trains also offer direct services to Bristol, where you can visit the docks or spend a great day out with the children in the zoo, which is set in the parkland that used to surround the old castle. Special family away day fares are available for this service now during the school holidays. Alternatively, you can be in Birmingham in only an hour and a half, where there's lots to see and do, including the new and internationally acclaimed climbing wall, built on the site of the old aquarium. We will also be running a special service to Newport when the new Science Museum opens next year, as we anticipate a lot of visitors in the opening weeks. I'd advise you to call early to book your tickets. Is that okay?
Yes, thanks.
That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turn to section 3. Section 3. You will hear a conversation between two students who are studying to be teachers, talking about science experiments. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
Hi, Sue.
Hi, Mike. So what happened to you last week?
Oh, I was sick with the flu. What's this I hear about a big assignment we've got to do?
Oh, well, basically, we've got to find 2 science experiments to do with a group of 8-year-old children at the local primary school. And we've got to complete it by the end of the week.
That sounds like hard work. Where are we supposed to get the ideas for these experiments from?
Well, I managed to get hold of 2 books from the library.
Oh, well done.
How about if we take a look at the experiments in this book first and see if anything looks suitable? I can make notes as we go about equipment and the purpose of the experiments.
OK, let's see. The first experiment is called Make Your Own Hovercraft, which sounds very ambitious. Mind you, you only need 20 balloons and a table. You don't need any special engines or anything like that.
What do you do with it all?
You blow up the balloons and you balance the table on them, upside down, of course, and the kids get to ride around on it. You know, the other kids sort of push them around the room. The main purpose is to show how hovercrafts work and how things hover around on just a cushion of air.
OK, that doesn't sound too bad.
OK, ready for number 2?
Mm-hmm.
Now, this one is called Unusual Measures of Lengths, and you basically use lots of paper clips. The kids go around the class measuring things, you know, how long the desk is and that sort of thing, and then they all compare their answers. And basically, because not all paper clips are the same lengths, they should come up with some strange answers. It's supposed to demonstrate the importance of having fixed units of measurement.
Yeah, that's not bad.
OK, now for number 3, you need rock salt or copper sulfate.
Oh, I'm not sure about that.
Well, just put down the rock salt then. Apart from that, you only need a jar of water. And basically you dissolve lots of salt into the water and watch the crystals form. So it basically teaches the kids about growing crystals.
Yeah, I suppose it would be nice to grow something. Let's move on and have a look at number 4.
OK, this one is called Spinning Colour Wheel. It looks like you get some cardboard and draw a circle on it, divide it into 6 equal segments and colour each one in using different colours. Then you thread a piece of string through the middle.
So we'd need some string as well.
Yes, sorry, and you spin the wheel around, and if you can get it spinning fast enough, hopefully the colours all merge and show up as white.
Oh, I didn't know that. What's the principle behind it?
Well, it's pretty elementary physics, really. It teaches them about how white light, or ordinary light, is made up.
Well, that doesn't sound too bad. Now, there's only one more left in this book, isn't there? What does that one say?
Well, it's another one where they'd get to make something.
Sounds very interesting.
You need quite a lot of equipment, actually. A hand drill, an old record, a pin or needle, some paper, and a bolt.
Go on. What do they have to do?
Well, they basically make a record player. The main idea is to teach them about recording sound, but hopefully they'd also see that you need motion and an amplifier to make the sound heard.
OK, well, it does sound interesting. Shall we go through all of those again and decide if any of them are going to be suitable?
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 27 to 30.
Right. Number 1. I thought this one sounded nice. There'd be lots of activity, and it doesn't need too much in the way of equipment.
Yes, that's true, but don't you think it's a bit risky to get a group of 8-year-olds pushing each other around a classroom like that? Well, someone could get hurt. No, I don't like the sound of that one at all.
Maybe you're right.
What about number 2, with the paper clips? It sounds tame enough.
Yes, a bit too tame, if you ask me. I think it needs to be something a bit more active and interesting than that, don't you?
Yes, I suppose you're right. We won't get a very good mark if the children don't actually enjoy the experiments. And I suppose we could turn them off science for good. Well, what about the next one, number 3?
Now, I quite like the idea of this one.
Yes, so do I. But I seem to remember when we did it at high school, we had to wait up to a fortnight before we saw any halfway decent results.
Oh, yes. Well, that won't be any good then. We'll only see the kids for 1 or 2 hours at the most.
Yes, and we have to do the experiments and write up our results within a week. So that one won't do at all.
OK. Well, what did you think of number 4?
I like the idea of it, but do you think it will be a bit elementary for them?
Well, they are only 8, you know.
I know, but you know what I mean. Don't you think the activity itself is a bit babyish?
Maybe you're right.
They might have fun, but I mean, cutting out a circle and colouring it in.
OK. Well, what about number 5?
I thought this one sounded a bit too good to be true. Great equipment.
Yeah.
But don't you think it's a bit ambitious for this age group? I mean, I don't want to start off something and then have to abandon it if they just can't cope with it. I could see us ending up doing just about all of the work for them.
I guess you're right. Oh, well, maybe we could store that idea away for later.
Yep. Let's hope this second book has something better.
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turn to section 4. Section 4. You will hear part of a lecture about the history of moving pictures. First, You have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Many believe that the story first began in America in 1877, when two friends were arguing over whether a horse ever had all 4 feet, or hooves, off the ground when it galloped. To settle the bet, a photographer was asked to photograph a horse galloping, and the bet was settled because you could see that all the hooves were off the ground in some of the photos. What was even more interesting was that if the photos were shown in quick succession, the horse looked like it was running. In other words, moving pictures. The person who became interested in taking the moving pictures to its next step was the famous American inventor Thomas Edison. Actually, he didn't do the work himself, but rather asked a young Scotsman in his employ to design a system, which he did. Now, this young fellow was clever, because the first thing he did was study other systems, primitive as they were, of moving pictures, and then put all the existing technologies together to make the first entire motion picture system. He designed a camera, a projection device, and the film. The system was first shown in New York in 1894 and was really very popular. Apparently, people lined up around the block to see the wonderful new invention. There were, however, a couple of problems with the system. The camera weighed over 200 kilograms, and only one person at a time could see the film. Well now, news of the new system in America traveled fast, and a number of rival European systems started to appear once people had heard about it. The single problem with all the systems was they couldn't really project the film onto a screen, so more than one person could see it. Then, in 1895, 3 systems were all developed, more or less at the same time and independently of each other. I guess the most famous of these was by the Lumière brothers from France, and they called their system the cinematograph, which of course is where the word cinema comes from. There were also 2 brothers in Germany who developed a successful system, and they called it a bioscope. Well, now once the problem of projection had been solved, the next challenge for the inventors was to make the films longer and more interesting. A continuing problem at the time was that the films had a tendency to break when they were being played, a problem which was caused by the tension between the 2 wheels, or reels as they are called, which hold the film. Now, this problem was solved by 2 American brothers. They developed the Lantham loop, which was the simple addition of a 3rd reel between the 2 main reels, and this took all the tension away, with the result that the film stopped snapping. So now there was a real possibility of having films of more than 2 or 3 minutes. And this led to the making of the Great Train Robbery, the very first movie made. It only lasted 11 minutes, but was an absolute sensation, and there were cases of people watching the movie and actually fainting when the character fired a gun at the camera. Almost overnight, movies became a craze, and by 1905, people in America were lining up to see movies in store theaters, as they were called then. I guess the next big step in terms of development of technology was to have people actually talking on the film. And the first step towards this was in 1926, when sound effects were first used on a film. It wasn't until the following year, however, that the first talkie, as they were called then, was made. This film featured actors speaking only during parts of the film, and was called The Jazz Singer. and it wasn't until 1928 that the first all-talking film was produced, and this was called The Lights of New York. Unfortunately, the sound on this early film was not very good, and I believe they put subtitles on the film. That is, they printed the dialogue along the bottom of the film to compensate for this poor sound quality. Now, with the addition of sound, moving pictures became far more difficult to make.
That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers.